Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to PhilDoes3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time. That'll be 4 PM now that daylight savings is finished for you guys in the US, 11 AM in Australia and 12 AM in the UK. Let's load up the model we were working on last week. I want to say thank you to Copon Bendito for the channel follow. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate it when you guys follow my channel. I hope you're all well. At the end of last week we were working on the bottom part of the dome. I think we'll continue doing some work on that today before we move on to the rest of the model. I just want to add some dirt marks and watermarks along the outside edges of that ring. It's looking too clean. Like I always say to you guys, always make sure that your model, particularly if it's a model that's going to be outside, isn't too clean looking. It'll destroy the illusion of reality if it looks like it just came off the manufacturing line. So always make sure that with your texturing work on a model that is going to be outside and exposed to weathering, that you add dirt marks. So anyway, we had this ring here that we were working on. We will continue working on that. We'll dirty it up a bit so it's more in line with this top ring here. Because as I said, at the moment it's just looking too clean. You won't have anything that clean looking, so let's jump into Mari and finish that ring off. So this one here. Again, I use Mari to do my texture painting. You can use Photoshop if that's what you prefer. You can use Substance Painter. That's another good texturing program if you like to work with the 3D model like I do. I just prefer Mari. Okay. Let's see now. Zoom in a bit. Let's finish off doing some of the texturing work we didn't finish on Wednesday last week. So these two inside rings I think is really all we have left to do. So again, let's jump into the UV viewport. That way it's just easier for us to work on those rings. And we can see the few here that we have left to do. So let's zoom in here. Some of these you won't be textured up because they'll be hidden behind other sections of the model. So let's just work out which piece this is here. I'm just going to throw on, actually I'm going to work in the same, no, I'll throw on a new layer. As I said, it never hurts to have a new layer. Let's pull in that texture we've been working with, which is England 15. This one here. And I'm just going to paint in a section here so I know which part of the model I'm working on. Like that. Press the Alt key to bake that down. Jump back into the UV viewport. And let's find that mark that we just made. Okay, it's this one here. So we'll zoom in so we can get a good view of the UVs here. We will rotate our texture again. Closer to the center that you do the rotation, the faster it will turn. If you want more control, select it towards the edge here. And that way you'll be able to rotate it with a lot more control of the texture itself. Okay. And may scale it up just a little bit. It should be good. Again, this is looking a little pixelated because we're zoomed right up quite close to that UV map, so bake that down. Because this is a relatively narrow section of the model itself, so bake it down by hitting the Alt key. I'm going to move that over a little bit actually. I'm also going to scale it up just a touch. Okay, we'll bake it down and do this last piece here. Okay, let's bake that down and jump back to the 3D viewport for a minute. All right. Okay, back into the UV viewport. I know the next piece is this piece here. Again, I'm going to zoom in quite close. Scale it back just a bit, and just a bit more. Bake that down. I don't want these double bricks here, I just want single bricks, so I'm going to paint over that. So again, we're going to jump back to here, just by moving our texture down. We'll bake it in. And the same just here. Okay, we'll bake that down. Jump back into our 3D viewport here. Okay, back to our UVs. So I'm going to jump back into the 3D viewport just quickly. Again, I'm just going to paint in here so I can see the bit that I'm working on next. Bake that down. Back into our UVs. That's going to be this bit up here. Now, if you want to texture the entire model, even the parts that you can't see, then you don't need to jump backwards and forwards. You can just continue working on all the grey parts that are left textured. But because I know that I don't really want to texture up the parts that are not being seen, I'm jumping backwards and forwards between the viewports so I can just work on those areas that I know will be you can see in the model. It's always probably good practice to texture up the entire model. It's personal preference, really. I'm actually going to zoom in here too. I'm going to be careful because I don't want to go over areas we've already textured. So zoom up a bit more, maybe like that. I'm actually going to reduce my brush size just a little bit as well. Bake that down. It just gives me a little bit of finer control here along these edges because they are very close together.
This bottom edge is not so important. Again, it's being hidden by part of the texture. That's why only the bottom part is grey. The top part is still grey. So we're just going to be a little bit careful along that edge. The smaller brush size will take us a little longer to paint in, but it gives us a lot more finer control. So let's press the Alt key to make that down. Move it along. Position it. Okay. And again, I like to work along the top edge here and then work back. So I'm going to paint all the way to the end and then come back and work on the rest of the texture here. Again, I'm not so concerned with the bottom edge, just that top edge. Okay, we'll bake that down. Let's jump back into the 3D viewport. Zoom out. Rotate our model around a bit. And again, I want to mark that texture in here. Let's bake that down quickly by hitting the Alt key. Jump back into our UV viewport. Zoom out. Okay, part of it is up the top there, so let's start with that bit. Probably there like that. And again, we're going to be careful on this bottom edge. If you're worried about this and you think that the UVs are too close together and you're going to make a mistake, you can turn on masking here. I'm not going to do it, but if you're worried about it, then I'd suggest you turn on masking. Even in the UV viewport, that will mask out areas that you don't want to paint on. So. But so long as you're careful, you should be fine. Remember, it's not a race, just go nice and slow and steady. Okay, we'll bake that down by hitting the Alt key. And finish off this bit here on the end. Okay, we'll bake that down and jump back into our 3D viewport. Okay, back into our UVs. And it's this bit down here. I know because of that line that we drew in the 3D viewport here. I did that just so I can orient myself in the UVs here so I know which one's which. So let's rotate our texture around. And work with this one here. So we may scale it in just a little bit. Scale it in just a bit more. Okay. That should be good. This one we're less worried. We don't have any UVs right next to it, so we don't have to worry so much about it. And again, always make sure you rotate the texture to follow the direction that the stone is would have been built with. Press the Alt key to bake that down. Yeah, so just keep in mind the direction that the stone is swallowing as a, for the UV that you're actually painting on. Okay, start that one about there. Bake it in and finish it off around here. Okay, we'll bake that down. Let's jump back into our 3D viewport again. Yeah, it looks like we've got all of the top section. Now we just have to work on this bottom section here. So again, I'm just going to zoom in and mark that section. Bake it down before I change to the UV viewport, otherwise it will erase it, because it doesn't apply to the UVs until you actually bake it down. And again, you bake it down by hitting the Alt key on a Windows PC. I'll zoom in a bit. Let's work with this layer here, I think. Again, we're not too close to another UV, so we don't have to be too careful here. We'll bake it in. Start that one about there. If you have any questions or you just want to say hi, feel free to pop into chat. I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have. Okay, we'll bake that down and finish this one off, maybe about there. Okay, let's bake that down and have a look at it in the 3D viewport. Okay. Let's go around. Again, we'll just mark our texture in. And then jump back into the UV viewport. And that's this one here. The other thing to keep in mind, because we're working on the same piece of geometry here, you want to stick to the same type of texture, but more importantly the texture size. So I know by zooming in on the model until it fits that texture block, then I'm going to keep the consistency across all of these different pieces of UV. So try not to scale the texture once you've started working on a section. Sometimes you'll do that to get an effect, but generally for this sort of thing you wouldn't want to. Okay, we'll bake that down. Again, we'll bake it down and start it about there. Okay, let's bake that down and have a look at it in the 3D viewport. All right. And again, let's mark the texture. And jump back into our UVs. This one up the top here. Again, we're going to rotate the texture so it follows the direction of the UV. Bake it down. And we'll start this one about here. Just being a little careful in that corner I don't hit the lower UV on. Okay, let's bake that down and jump back into our 3D viewport. We just have, I think, one more section to do, maybe two, depending on the size of the UV. Just going to rotate my texture a bit. Okay, so just paint a line in so we know which bits we're going to be working on. Jump back into our UVs again. That's this one up the top. Again, rotate our texture. Paint it in. Okay, we'll bake it down. Start it around there. And bake that down. And this bit on the end will start about there. Again, just being a little bit careful in that corner. And we'll bake it down. Jump back into our 3D viewport. Okay, it looks like we have got all of those pieces now. Everything seems to be textured up. Good. Let's start with the top here. So I'm going to rotate the model probably on just on a slight angle back like that. I am going to turn on masking, edge mask. I'm going to zoom in a bit, rotate it up a bit like that. I'm going to go back into, actually I'm going to increase that brush size again. Go back into our layers and throw on a new layer. Back into our images, and let's see now. We want something we can put over it as a general type of dirt texture. I'm just going to zoom out a bit as well so I can see the entire model. Again, I'm angling it slightly back. Let's have a look at this one. This one might be okay. I'm just going to scale it up until it just covers the model. We're working in a new layer again. Let's paint that in. and bake it down. Okay, let's change its, move the texture over to the side just for a second and change the layer style. Pull it back just a bit. Something like that. We're going to do the same thing except on the bottom side here. So again, angle it back like that. Now, I know when I have it right because I want the mask to mask out that section of the model here, that thin vertical section of the wall. I'm only really going to paint on the horizontal, so I angle the model up until I see that that masking is affecting that vertical section. Again, I'll throw on a new layer, move our texture in again, maybe a little different, just move it over to the side a bit. Okay, paint that in. Alright, let's bake that down. Move our texture off a bit. And pull that back. A bit like that. Let's throw on a new layer. Grab a new texture. This is the bottom edge, so this is an edge you will see more so than the top. If you're standing looking up at the model at the dome, or doing a render looking up, you're going to see this bottom section. So let's find a texture that looks good. Not that one. Not that one. Scale this out. Scale it in rather. Scale it out a bit. Okay. Now we're working on a new layer again. Let's paint this one in. Okay, we'll bake it down. Move it off to the side for a minute. Maybe like that. Again, we're going to throw on a new layer. And this one might work well. Scale that down, rotate it around. I'm actually going to zoom in on the model a bit more. Scale it up a bit. Okay, just checking that we are on a new layer, and we are. Bake that down. Rotate our model around. Rotate our texture around a bit. Bake it in. We'll bake that down. Keep rotating our model around. Again, angling it away from us. Even though we have masking turned on, it's still a good idea to angle the model away, just so you don't accidentally paint over a part of the texture you don't intend to on the opposite side. Bake it down. I'm just slightly overlapping this texture as I go around the model so it blends in. Just going to rotate it around a little bit. Bake it in. Okay. Okay, we'll bake that down. Rotate our texture a bit. Bake it down. Okay. We're almost back around again, so bake that down. And join them up just here. Okay, let's zoom out on our model a bit. Move that texture off to the side. Let's throw an invert on this as an adjustment layer and have a look. If we don't like it, we can remove it. And I think I prefer the dark to the light, so I'm going to stick with the invert. Alright, let's work on these sides here a bit. We'll start with the top ring, I think. So I'm just going to position my model here. Zoom in a bit. Angle it slightly back. Throw on a new layer. Just going to save what we've worked on so far. Alright, let's see now. What's this one like? This one might work okay. I think I'll go with the white this time instead of the black, so just going to scale it in a bit. Working on a new layer. Paint that in. Take that down. Oh, don't worry about where we've overshot just here, because we're going to be changing the lay style to work with the white of the map. The black won't show up at all. So if you go over slightly, don't stress about it. Paint that in, bake it down by hitting the Alt key. Just keep working our way around the model until we meet up with the other side. And again, it's only the white part of this texture we're really worrying about. We're not worrying about the black. Alright, we're almost back around. Just rotate my texture so it covers the area properly. Bake it down and join up these two pieces. Okay. Let's just move our texture out of the way and zoom out a little bit. Let's change our layer style here. And pull that back a bit, like that. Alright, let's do the same thing here, but this time we will be working with the darker part of the texture, so I'm just going to zoom in on this bottom ring.